The house was large, quiet, and always on time. Every morning at 8, the curtains opened on their own. At 8:10, the kettle clicked. At 8:15, the news murmured from a small radio near the window. People moved like clock hands through the long halls. The carpet was thick. The air smelled faintly of polish and lemon. And in the sunny sitting room, on the left side by the piano, Mrs. Whitfield sat in her special chair and watched the day begin. She had not walked in 20 years. It started with an accident, then a long hospital stay, then careful therapy, and then a life built around safety. At first, there had been hope and many appointments. Later, there had been fear of pain, fear of falling, and fear of another long, hard recovery that might lead nowhere. Time did the rest. The chair became her anchor. The hallways became places she visited by wheelchair. The garden became something she saw through glass. People came and went. Nurses, therapists, drivers, gardeners, and cooks. Each person knew what to do. They were kind and professional. They spoke softly and walked gently. No one asked her to do more than she could. No one wanted to risk harm. The result was a peaceful life that felt like a room with a locked door. Her son, Daniel, kept the door locked because he loved her. He managed the house, the accounts, and the family foundation. He arrived with papers, sat at the small desk in the corner, and spoke about schedules and plans. He had a serious face and a careful heart. He believed that steady was safe, that routine was protection, and that hope should be contained inside. Approved plans and doctor's notes. On a soft Monday, a new person arrived. Her name was Amma. The agency called her a live-in housekeeper and care aide. Some people in the house called her the maid out of habit. Amma listened and nodded when they used that word, but her eyes said she was there for more. She had a gentle voice, quick hands, and a calm way of standing still. She learned the layout in one slow walk with the head of staff. She asked where the extra blankets were. She asked where the emergency kit was kept. Then she stood at the kitchen doorway, watched the morning rhythm, and breathed in. Her first meeting with Mrs. Whitfield was quiet. Amma knocked on the door frame and stepped in with a fresh glass of water. She did not rush. She did not speak about goals or plans. She placed the glass on the side table and looked around the room in a thoughtful way, as if the house itself was a person she wished to understand. The piano, the photograph of a small boy with a paper crown, the books with thin bookmarks, the chair with its soft blanket folded in a neat square. "Good morning," Amma said. "I am Amma. I work here now. May I sit?" Mrs. Whitfield smiled in her polite way. "Of course." They spoke about small things at first: the weather, the jasmine in the garden, the sound of the kettle. Amma's voice had a warm rhythm that eased into the room like sunlight. She did not ask personal questions. She did not talk about the past. She only noticed and cared about the present moment. When she left, the glass of water was closer to the chair, the blanket edge was smoothed, and a small draft from the window had been fixed with a gentle pull on the latch. That afternoon, Amma observed the daily routine. She stood aside as the easy nurse checked blood pressure and pulse, as the driver carried in a box from the pharmacy, as the cook asked about lunch. Amma saw how everyone did their task well, and how no one asked Mrs. Whitfield how she felt about the music on the radio or the angle of the curtains. It was no one's fault. It was simply a life that had been arranged for safety before comfort, for predictability before joy. On the second morning, Amma brought a small speaker and asked if she could play a song while dusting the bookshelf. "Very soft," she said. "We can stop at once if it bothers you." Mrs. Whitfield nodded. The song was old, a tune from a school dance long ago. The piano part was bright and simple. Halfway through the first verse, Mrs. Whitfield's fingers moved, on the chair arm almost like a secret drum. Amma did not comment. She dusted the middle shelf and hummed so softly it was almost part of the air. Later, when she helped bring the lunch tray closer, Amma noticed a tiny flicker in Mrs. Whitfield's left foot. It could have been nothing. It could have been a change in light or a shift in fabric. Amma did not gasp or stare. She only made a mental note. When the music played, the foot had twitched. The house noticed Amma, too. The senior housekeeper watched her fold towels with neat edges and nodded. The driver saw how she greeted him by name. The cook liked that she rinsed her own cup and put it away. Some staff members were unsure. They wondered if she would make changes. They liked the current system. It was smooth. It was safe. But Amma made no demands. She watched. She listened. She learned. On the third day, Daniel asked Amma into the small office. He was polite but formal. "This is a careful home," he said. "My mother's comfort is everything. If you ever feel unsure, call me or the nurse. We do not take risks." "I understand," Amma said. "I follow the plan. I will also ask small questions, if permitted." "Questions?" "About music, about light, about the best time for tea. Small things." Daniel hesitated. "That is fine." In the late afternoon, Amma moved a small chair near the window and sat facing the garden. She invited Mrs. Whitfield to tell her about the flowers. The older woman described the jasmine first, then the roses that once grew on the far wall. Her voice changed as she spoke. It lost its careful, steady tone and found a natural rhythm. When she paused for breath, Amma waited. She did not fill the silence. She let the words arrive when they were ready. Before dinner, Amma's path crossed, with a staff member in the hall. "She is kind to you," the person said, almost like a warning. "Do not get her hopes up." Amma answered in her calm way, "I will not. Hope is her own. I am here for care." That evening, when the house grew quieter, Amma returned to the sitting room to tidy. She watched Mrs. Whitfield hold a photo for a long time. It showed a mother and a boy at a beach, both laughing, both sandy and bright with sun. "That is my son," Mrs. Whitfield said, lifting the corner so Amma could see. "He is very careful now." "He loves you," Amma said. "He does. He wants to protect me from anything that could hurt. I want that too. But sometimes protection can feel like a very soft wall." Amma did not answer right away. She finished straightening the books and rested her hands on the shelf. "Walls keep us safe," she said at last. "Sometimes they can also keep out a small breeze that makes us remember we are alive." They both smiled. The words felt gentle, not like a plan, not like a push, only like a shared thought. The next morning, Amma arrived with a small notebook. It was simple and neat, with a date at the top of the first page. She did not show it to anyone. She used it to write small observations. The song that made Mrs. Whitfield smile, the exact time the garden light was nicest, how long the morning radio stayed pleasant before it became tiring. These were not medical notes. They were notes about being human. During a routine stretch with the nurse present, Amma stood near the foot of the chair, well out of the way. She watched the nurse guide a gentle ankle movement, slow and safe. Mrs. Whitfield's face stayed calm. When the nurse finished, she said, "Good work." Amma added, "Thank you," not to the nurse, but to Mrs. Whitfield, as if an effort had been offered to the room. After lunch, the driver carried a box through the hall and a staff member muttered something like, "New people always bring new ideas." The tone was not harsh but not kind either. Amma heard it. She did not change her expression. She kept walking and stopped by the piano bench to align it with the keys. Later, when she was alone, she exhaled and let the words pass by like a small cloud. By the end of her first week, Amma had a map in her mind. The times when energy was highest, the moments when silence felt heavy, the songs that freshened the air. She also knew where fear lived. It lived in the memory of falls, in the careful path of the wheelchair, in the way Daniel's eyes tightened when anyone mentioned change. She did not judge that fear. She kept it in her plan, as if it were a fragile object to carry with both hands. On a clear Saturday morning, the sun fell across the carpet in a long golden stripe. Amma rolled the small table a little closer and set a cup of tea within easy reach. She checked the blanket fold, the window latch, and the radio volume. Then she stood by the window, not too close, and asked a question she had prepared very carefully. "Would you like to try a different kind of morning routine?" she said. Her voice was gentle and plain. Not something big, only different, in small ways. More music you like. A little more time sitting with your feet on the floor before the nurse arrives. Not every day. Only on days when you want it. Mrs. Whitfield looked at her with her quiet, intelligent eyes. She did not answer at once. She looked at the carpet where the sunlight lay, at the piano bench lined up with the keys, at the notebook on the side table with its neat, careful page marker. Then she looked back at Amma. "What would it feel like?" she asked. "Safe," Amma said. "Safe and soft. You would tell me if anything felt wrong. We would stop if you were tired. We would count breaths instead of minutes. We would listen to your favorite song. We would not try to do more than today can hold." Mrs. Whitfield's fingers moved on the chair arm, the way they did when the old tune played. For a moment, the house held its breath. The kettle clicked in the far kitchen. The radio hummed a low note. Outside, a bird called twice and fell quiet. "All right, Mrs." The word. The new morning routine began like a soft song. It did not try to be big. It did not promise miracles. It simply asked for 3 slow breaths, a little music, and time to sit with feet touching the floor for a moment longer than usual. Amma kept, her voice gentle and steady. Mrs. Whitfield watched her hands and felt calm. The house moved around them as always. Kettle, clock, soft footsteps in the hallway. But something small had changed inside the room. It felt like the first breeze after a long stillness. After those first mornings, Amma wrote careful notes in her little notebook. She did not write in a hurry. She wrote at the right time, with dates and small details. Monday, 9:15 a.m. Song, Autumn Light. 3 breaths felt good. Feet on floor for half a minute. Smile. On Tuesday, she wrote, energy lower at 10 a.m., better at 11. Tea helped. The notes were not medical orders. They were like a friendly map of what made Mrs. Whitfield feel safe and present. On Wednesday, Daniel asked to see the notebook. He stood at the door, not quite entering, his careful face set in its usual calm lines. "May I?" he said. "Of course," Amma answered, passing it to him. He read in silence for a minute. His eyes moved over the words and the clean dates. The notes did not push. They did not make promises. They described feelings, timing, and comfort. He hesitated, then said, "My mother has had many plans. Some of them raised our hopes. Then we were disappointed. I worry about that." "I understand," Amma said. "I do not want to raise hopes. I want to respect today. If something feels wrong, we stop. If she is tired, we rest. If all we do is breathe and listen to a song she loves, that is still a good morning." Daniel looked at his mother. She sat with the light across her hands, her favorite blanket over her knees. She was listening to both of them, her eyes patient and kind. "I want you both to feel safe," he said to them, almost like a promise to himself. "We do," Mrs. Whitfield said. "I like the breathing. I like the song choices. The garden looks brighter after the music." That afternoon, Amma made a simple plan for the next day. She kept it small and within the doctor's guidance. Few gentle posture cues in bed, a careful sit at the edge, feet down, hands steady, 3 breaths, music low, and a short rest after. She told the nurse first. The nurse nodded. "All within the safe plan." "I will be there," the nurse said. But Daniel wanted one more layer of care. He called the family physician and asked for a review. The doctor had known Mrs. Whitfield for years and understood the family's cautious heart. He arrived the next morning with a kind smile and a leather bag that seemed too traditional for such a modern house. He washed his hands, checked pulse and pressure, and asked routine questions in a voice that was neither hopeful nor sad. It was calm. Amma described the new routine with clear words. She did not use complicated terms. She said, "We breathe, we listen. We sit a little longer if it feels good. We stop if she is tired. We rest after. I write notes." The doctor listened. He looked at Mrs. Whitfield. "How do you feel about it?" he asked. "I feel respected," she said. "It does not ask too much." He smiled at that. "We can approve this," he said. "Stay within these limits." He gave simple boundaries. No standing without a trained person and proper equipment. No long sessions. Stop if pain appears. Stop if fatigue grows. Measure in seconds, not in steps. He wrote a brief note and left a copy for the file. "And enjoy the music," he said at the door. "It helps more than people think." When the doctor left, the house felt lighter. The plan did not promise change, it promised safety. That, at last, opened a small door. The next morning began at the same time. The curtains opened, the tea steamed. Amma adjusted the chair angle by a tiny amount so the sun would warm but not glare. She placed the favorite cup within easy reach. She checked the brakes. Then she turned the radio dial to the gentle song from the first day. The piano notes were warm and simple. The nurse stood nearby, hands ready but relaxed. "3 breaths," Amma said softly. "Only 3. They counted together. At the third exhale, Amma said, "Would you like your feet on the floor for a moment?" Mrs. Whitfield nodded. The nurse and Amma helped her with the smallest, safest motions. No strain, no rush. Heels touched the carpet. The carpet was soft but firm below the soles. That small change always surprised her. The difference between feet in the air and feet on the ground felt like a quiet bell. "What do you feel?" Amma asked. "Grounded," Mrs. Whitfield said, "and a little brave." They smiled. After half a minute, they lifted her feet back onto the support. They rested. The nurse measured pulse again. It was steady. Amma wrote, "Feet on floor, 40 seconds. Comfortable. Word used. Brave." The staff saw the notebook open on the side table and whispered in the hall. Some were hopeful. Some were worried about changes to the routine they had perfected. One person said, "She has not walked in 20 years. Another said, "We should not talk about walking." Amma did not argue with anyone. She simply repeated the doctor's plan when asked. "We measure in seconds, not steps. We stay within safe limits. We do less if needed. We stop if she is tired." She said it like a poem they could all learn by heart. In the afternoons, Amma tried something new. She brought a small speaker and chose songs from the years when Mrs. Whitfield was young. She always asked first. If Mrs. Whitfield said yes, she kept the volume low and watched. The music seemed to reach into a part of memory that words could not touch. Mrs. Whitfield's eyes softened. The muscles in her face relaxed. Some days, her hand would tap once, then stop. On one gentle afternoon, her left foot twitched on its own during a pause between notes. It was small, like the blink of light on a glass, but it was there. Amma did not make a sound. She only looked at the clock, the position of the foot, the angle of the ankle, and put the picture in her mind. Later, in the notebook, she wrote, "Independent flicker, left foot during sea breeze, minute 2. She did not circle the words. She did not underline. She just wrote them and closed the book with care. That night, she sat at the small staff table in the kitchen with a cup of tea. The cook asked, Long day? Good, Amma said. Gentle. You have a patient face, the cook said with a smile. It makes the room kinder. Then, the cook lowered her voice and added, Some people worry you will try to change too much. Don't mind them. They are used to the old way. I do not wish to change anything, Amma said. I wish to listen. The next day, Daniel came, earlier than usual. He stood with his mother while Amma set the scene. Chair position, blanket, cup, radio, window latch. He watched her check the brakes twice. He watched how Amma looked at Mrs. Whitfield before every small motion, asking with her eyes and waiting for a nod. It was not a list of tasks. It was a conversation. Feet down for 30 seconds? Amma asked. Yes, Mrs. Whitfield said. With the music, please. They did it. 30 seconds became 40 without effort, because they were not counting. In their heads, only breathing with the song. Afterward, Amma asked, Anything feel wrong? No, Mrs. Whitfield said. It felt like sitting by the sea with my feet in sand. Only for a moment. Then back to the chair. Daniel felt something loosen inside his chest. He had lived so long on the edge of worry that he had forgotten how warmth felt in a room like this. How will we know if we should keep going? He asked. We will not chase numbers, Amma said. We will watch for comfort. If tomorrow is less than today, that is not failure. It is the truth of that day. He nodded. The words fit his mother's life like a well-made coat. Not tight, not loose, just right. In the days that followed, there were no big jumps. There were only small, steady mornings. Amma learned that 10:30 was a good time for music. She learned that some songs brightened the breathing, and some made it too strong and needed to be saved for later. She learned that fresh air through the window was nice for 2 minutes, not 5. She learned that a folded towel behind the lower back made sitting more comfortable for short periods. She wrote each detail. She thanked the nurse for being present. She thanked Mrs. Whitfield after each effort as if a gift had been given. On Friday, a thing happened that was so small it could have been missed. During the usual routine, after 3 breaths and 40 seconds of feet on the floor, the music reached a familiar chorus. Mrs. Whitfield's left heel lifted and tapped the carpet. Once. The motion was independent. It was not guided. It happened, like a thought made visible. Amma saw it. The nurse saw it too. No one spoke for a second because speaking might break the quiet of the moment. Amma met Mrs. Whitfield's eyes. Did you feel that? She asked softly. Mrs. Whitfield searched. Inside her own body, the way a person listens for a far sound. Yes, she said, like a bird in the grass. They rested. Amma did not try to repeat it. She did not chase the moment. She wrote it down after pulse and tea. Left heel tap, independent, during chorus of autumn light, comfort maintained. Smile after. When Daniel returned from a meeting, he found the notebook open to that line. He read it twice, then looked up with careful hope. Is that good? It is a moment of response, the nurse said, using safe words. It is not a promise, but it is real. We will keep the same plan, Amma added. No change because of this. We protect rest. We protect comfort. We only notice. Daniel sat with his mother by the window. The garden smelled like jasmine. A bee moved from flower to flower. He did not talk about goals. He did not say the words he used to say long ago. The days that followed were steady, almost like beads on a string. Each morning had the same gentle beginning. 3 slow breaths, a favorite song, feet on the floor for a safe amount of time, a short rest, and a warm cup of tea. Amma kept her, notes simple and clear. The nurse stayed near with calm hands and a kind smile. Sometimes there was a small independent flicker in a foot or a gentle tap of a heel at a lovely part of a song. Sometimes there was nothing new at all, and that was also fine. The plan was not a ladder to climb. It was a room to sit in together with open windows and easy air. Then, on a bright Tuesday, a small scare arrived like a fast cloud across the sun. It happened during a routine transfer from the chair to the wheelchair. Everything had been checked. Brakes locked, footrests out of the way, hands placed correctly, the nurse in front, Amma at the side. Mrs. Whitfield shifted her weight as she had done many times before. The wheel on the chair caught the edge of the carpet and did not move as expected. Her body swayed a bit more than planned. It was only a quick tilt, but it made everyone's heart jump. The nurse responded at once, steady and trained. Amma kept. Her hands where they should be, supporting, not pulling. Mrs. Whitfield let out a small breath of surprise, then sat safely, perfectly upright, no harm done. The room stayed very quiet. The nurse checked pulse and asked gentle questions. "Any pain? Any dizziness?" Mrs. Whitfield shook her head. "Just startled," she said. They rested. They made tea. The nurse wrote a brief note for the file. It was all fine, but Daniel heard about it in the hall. By the time he reached the sitting room, his careful face had turned into a shield. "What happened?" he asked, voice controlled but tight. Amma stood straight. "A small slip of the wheel on the carpet edge," she said in a calm tone. "We stabilized at once. There was no fall. The nurse checked everything. We have all the notes." "It felt like a tilt," Mrs. Whitfield added softly. "But everything was safe in the end." "I don't like tilts," Daniel said. He was not unkind. He was protective. He spoke from a long memory of sudden bad news that began with small tilts. "I think we should stop any new routine." Amma did not rush to answer. She looked at the brakes, then at the carpet, then at the quiet, steady eyes of the nurse. "I agree we must make the environment safer," she said. "We can add a transfer board for smoother moves. We can use a standing frame when appropriate, with trained support. We can place anti-slip mats under the wheels where the carpet changes to floor. We can also request a quick home visit from the equipment vendor to confirm the setup and invite the physician or a physical therapist to supervise." The first use. Daniel listened. He heard that the plan was not about pushing harder. It was about protecting what was already happening and making each step more secure. Still, fear sat on his shoulder. "I will call the doctor," he said. The doctor came the next day. He looked at the carpet edge and the wheel, at the chair position and the light in the room. He appreciated how the nurse had written the notes and how Amma spoke without drama and without excuses. "This house is already careful," he said, "but we can be even more thoughtful. A transfer board will help. A standing frame used with 2 trained people can allow safe vertical weight-bearing for seconds at a time, if and only if the patient wants it and feels supported. Non-slip footwear is important. And remember our rule. We measure in seconds, not in steps." He placed a short call to a physical therapist who worked well with home visits and gentle plans. The therapist could come next week for an assessment and to introduce the standing frame if Mrs. Whitfield agreed. Everyone turned to her. "Only if you would like to try," the doctor reminded. Mrs. Whitfield folded her hands, thinking. "I agree to meet the therapist," she said. "No promises beyond that." The equipment vendor came first to set up the transfer board and measure for a standing frame. He spoke in simple words and gave a clear demonstration with the nurse and Amma. He checked the rubber tips, tested the frame, and showed where to place the belt for safe support. Amma practiced the motions slowly with the nurse. Daniel watched from the doorway, his shoulders loosening a little every minute. Nothing rushed. No one pretended this was easy. It was careful work, full of pauses. Still, fear lingered inside the house like a shadow. Later that afternoon, Mrs. Whitfield said in a small voice, "I am sorry for that tilt. I think it made too much trouble." Amma shook her head gently. "You do not need to be sorry," she said. "You did nothing wrong. The house is adjusting to new tools. These adjustments are not trouble. They are care. But it takes everyone's time, Mrs. Whitfield said. It gives everyone purpose, Amma answered. That is not the same thing. The next few mornings returned to the simplest routine while they waited for the therapist. 3 breaths. A song. Feet on the floor for 40 seconds or 30 if that felt better that day. A rest. Tea. The nurse said, "Good work." Amma said, "Thank you." Mrs. Whitfield said, "I like the light today," or "Let's choose the quieter song," or "The towel behind my back helps." The notebook grew another page, small lines of useful human details. When the therapist arrived the following week, she was bright-eyed and calm, with a clear way of speaking that matched the house's new rhythm. She introduced herself as Ms. Patel and took time to know the room, the piano, the window, the carpet edge, the equipment, the faces. She talked first to Mrs. Whitfield. "You set the pace. If anything feels wrong, say so. We stop. Today we will only assess. No surprises." The assessment was gentle. Range of motion, light pressure, a check on posture, a few questions about comfort. Ms. Patel praised the notebook and the rhythm of the existing routine. "You have already done the hardest part," she said. "You have built safe attention. Now, if you wish, we can add a frame session on some days, extremely short, just seconds, to feel weight through the legs with full support. Not every day, only on the days when you want it." They planned a trial for the next morning. The nurse, Amma, and Ms. Patel practiced the setup again without Mrs. Whitfield first. Positions, belt placement, handholds, where to stand, how to count. They ran through safety checks twice. When they were satisfied, they stopped. "No more today," Ms. Patel said. "We keep the body fresh for tomorrow." That night, quiet feelings moved through the house. Some staff members were excited. Some were worried but hopeful. One senior staff member, who had always liked rules and schedules, spoke sharply in the hallway. "This is too much for the household." Amma heard it but did not answer. It was Daniel who spoke from the office door. "We are following the doctor's plan," he said, not loud but strong. "We are doing this right. Thank you for your work helping us keep things tidy and safe." The words surprised even him. They were firm and kind at once. Morning came with a pale sun. The sitting room felt like a stage set for a quiet play where every prop mattered. The frame stood by the window, strong and steady. The belt hung ready. The chair was at the perfect angle. The nurse checked pulses and encouraged calm breaths. Amma turned the radio dial to a soft piano theme that had become like a friend to the room. Ms. Patel stood in place and reviewed the plan aloud in simple steps. First, we sit. Then we breathe. Then we align the hips and shoulders. Then we move to the frame with full support. We count seconds, not steps. At the first sign of discomfort, we stop. We rest after. We celebrate nothing and everything. Amma smiled at that last line. It fit the house perfectly. They began. Mrs. Whitfield's hands were warm and a little trembly, not from fear, but from the feeling of a new door opening. The nurse said, "Ready when you are." Ms. Patel said, "We will go very slowly." Amma said, "I am here." They moved together like a small, thoughtful team. Transfer to the frame was careful, with pauses and quiet questions. "Is this okay?" "Yes." "Is the belt too snug?" "No." "Would you like the music a little lower?" "Yes, please." Then they waited for 3 breaths with hands resting on the rails. The room remembered to breathe with them. Thus. 3. "We rise a little," Ms. Patel said. "No higher than comfort. 3, 2, 1. Mrs. Whitfield lifted into the frame. Knees unlocked a little. Hips found a line above the feet. Shoulders stacked gently over the hips. The belt steadied her. Ms. Patel stood behind and slightly to the side with her hands ready. The nurse kept one hand near the rail, the other ready near the belt. Amma, at eye level, counted softly. 1, 2, 3, 4. It felt like standing at the edge of the sea with water touching the ankles. Not deep, not frightening, just a new sensation after a long time of dry land. Mrs. Whitfield looked at the window where the morning light made a bright square on the carpet. The piano theme was soft. Her breath was steady. 5, 6, 7. Any discomfort? Ms. Patel asked. No, Mrs. Whitfield said. I feel tall. They smiled, but no one cheered. It was not a moment for noise. It was a moment for quiet truth. 8, 9, 10. At 10, Ms. Patel said, we can sit any time. 2 more seconds, Mrs. Whitfield whispered. 11, 12, Amma counted, and then they lowered with perfect care, every joint guided, every hand placed exactly as trained. Mrs. Whitfield sat. The room let out a small, happy breath as if the furniture itself had been waiting. No one moved for a few seconds. The piano theme ended. The next song did not start. The whole house, it seemed, was listening to the silence around a simple number. 12. 12 seconds of safe standing in a supportive frame The storm came in the late afternoon like a slow drum. At first, there was only a gray line on the horizon, then a wind that lifted the jasmine vines and made them tap the window. The staff closed doors and checked the generator, just in case. The driver moved the car under the covered space. The cook set aside a tray of sandwiches in case dinner was delayed. The house that usually felt like a soft clock now felt awake in a different way, as if it were listening. In the sitting room, Amma drew the curtains halfway to cut the glare without losing the light. She checked the brakes on the chair and placed the cup closer. The nurse watched the clouds and said, we should do the simple routine early before the storm is at its loudest. Mrs. Whitfield nodded. She did not fear rain. She liked the sound of it when it was not too strong. It reminded her of being young, home from school, windows misted with every breath, the world clean and close. They did the routine as they always did. 3 breaths, a favorite piano song, feet on the floor for a safe count, a rest, and tea. Amma wrote the time in the notebook and a small note. Weather change, calm mood. When the first heavy drops hit the roof, she turned the radio off so the storm could speak and not compete with music. They sat together and listened to the kind of rain that fills a room with its own rhythm. Then the lights went out. It was not violent. It was a soft click and a hush. The radio went quiet. The refrigerator in the kitchen stopped its low hum. For one fast second, the house felt like a held breath. The nurse reached for a small flashlight from the side table. Amma had her phone light ready in a blink. They both moved as if they had practiced for this, because they had. It's all right, Amma said in her even voice. The generator will start. A few rooms away, they heard the slow rumble of the generator trying to wake. It did not catch at once. It turned, sighed, turned again. The light from the window was still enough to see faces and hands. The storm moved across the roof like distant feet. Mrs. Whitfield was calm. She looked at the window, and then at Amma. I'm all right, she said. I know, Amma said. We stay still for a moment. The generator caught and hummed back to life. Lights did not blaze. They returned like small stars. The clock on the wall blinked and then found the time again. In the kitchen, someone laughed softly and said, There you are. The house breathed out. Something small changed in the room, with the return of steady light. It was not big, not loud. It was a feeling like the moment a person makes a decision in the quiet part of their mind. Mrs. Whitfield looked at the empty space near the window where the standing frame had been, placed earlier that week and then rolled away. She looked at the carpet, the bright square of day on the floor, the belt hanging on its hook, the folded towel that lived on the arm of the chair. Could we try the frame again today? she asked in a clear voice. Just once more, very short. The nurse lifted her eyebrows, not in doubt, but in respect. Ms. Patel is due for a check this afternoon, she said. If you wish, we can wait for her and do it together. It will be safer with 3. I would like that, Mrs. Whitfield said. The storm made me feel present. She searched for the right word and then added with a small smile, awake. They waited. The rain softened. The air smelled like clean stone. Daniel came and went with updates about the weather and the generator. His voice calm now that the power was back. He held the notebook and read the notes for the day, then set it down in its place without comment. He had learned that not every good thing needs words right away. Ms. Patel arrived a little early, with wet hair and bright eyes and a kind of cheerful focus that fit the house on storm days. She hung her coat, washed her hands, and greeted everyone, by name. How was the power? She asked. A short pause, the nurse said. Now steady. Good, Ms. Patel said. And how are you? She asked Mrs. Whitfield. Awake, Mrs. Whitfield said again, and this time the word felt like the right one. They reviewed the plan out loud. It was the same plan as before, simple and careful. We will stand for a very short time with full support, Ms. Patel said. If at any moment you wish to stop, say so. We will also try a small side weight shift, while holding the rails, not a step, just a practice of where the body places weight. If that feels wrong, we do not do it. Everything is your choice. Everything is my choice, Mrs. Whitfield repeated, as if she needed to hear the truth, out loud. They set the room the way they liked it for these moments. The frame stood by the window where the light was soft and even. The belt was checked for strength and length. The non-slip footwear was in place. The nurse set the chair at an angle. That allowed an easy return. Amma adjusted the towel on the rail for comfort. Ms. Patel tightened the small strap that made the belt sit just right. 3 breaths, Amma said softly. The storm moved away from the house, and the room felt like a shell left wet by a wave. They moved into the frame carefully, 3 people, 1 intention. Mrs. Whitfield's hands found the rails and pressed lightly. Ms. Patel counted them up into standing, slow and sure. The nurse watched the knees and hips. Amma watched the face and breath. It was a short rise, not high, not heavy, only enough to feel tall again. 1, 2, 3, Amma counted. Not the seconds this time, but the breaths. On the 3rd breath, Ms. Patel suggested, let's try a tiny side weight shift to the right, just a whisper of weight, and then we return to center. Okay, Mrs. Whitfield said. They shifted the smallest amount, a careful lean inside, a safe frame with hands on the rails and the belt steady. It was nothing to see from across the room, but a world to feel inside the body. Good, Ms. Patel said. And back. They returned to center. Everyone took another breath. Would you like one more to the left? Ms. Patel asked. Yes, Mrs. Whitfield said. They did it, then returned to center. The nurse watched the color in her face and the set of her shoulders. All right? The nurse asked. All right, Mrs. Whitfield said, and then, after a quiet second, she added, I would like to try one more thing, if it is safe and if you agree. What is that? Ms. Patel asked. A tiny forward move, Mrs. Whitfield said slowly. Not a step, just a practice of lifting the foot. Very small, with both of you supporting me, only if it is safe. Ms. Patel looked at the nurse. The nurse looked at Amma. The 3 women shared a silent check. Equipment ready, belt snug, hands placed, path clear, chair close, mind calm. Ms. Patel nodded. We can try a micro move, she said. It will be assisted. Think of it as a toe slide, not a full step. We will support you completely. Only if you wish to, Amma added. I wish to, Mrs. Whitfield said in a steady voice. They set it up. Ms. Patel moved slightly behind and to one side, hands ready at the belt and hip. The nurse took the other side, hands near the rail and the thigh. Amma stayed at eye level, her voice the thread that kept everything connected. The space between the frame and the chair was small and free of any hazard. The carpet was smooth. The world seemed very quiet, like a library where a person turns a page. On 3, lift the right foot a tiny amount and let it come down just a little forward, Ms. Patel said. Do not push. We will carry the effort together. If it does not happen, that is fine. We will simply stand and call it a good day. 3, Amma said gently, and then 2, and then 1. Mrs. Whitfield lifted her right foot the smallest distance, a careful move helped by 4 steady hands and a strong belt. The foot came down again a little ahead of where it had been, as soft as placing a leaf on water. It was not a full step. It was a step-sized idea, supported and safe, more like a promise spoken in a whisper than a shout. They all paused, still in the frame, still secured, still breathing. Would you like to return the left foot to match? Miss Patel asked. Yes, Mrs. Whitfield said, and they repeated the careful move on the other side. Lift, slide, place, all within a small space, all with support. 2 assisted steps, then stillness. No one clapped. No one cried out. The room held its quiet like a perfect bowl. The storm was only a sound far away now. The light on the carpet was bright but soft. Mrs. Whitfield's eyes were wet, and her breath was steady. How do you feel? Amma asked in a whisper. Like I moved through a door, Mrs. Whitfield said. A very small door, but still a door. We will help you sit, Ms. Patel said, with the same care. They did, guiding every joint and checking every point of contact, lowering only as fast as comfort allowed. When she sat, they let the silence stay for a few seconds. Then, the nurse touched her wrist and read the pulse. Steady, the nurse said, and smiled. Amma passed the tissue and then the tea. Ms. Patel wrote a few clear lines in her own notes, then pointed to the notebook on the side table. Would you like to write it? She asked Amma. Yes, Amma said, after she rests. They rested. The clock on the wall marked the time as if it were making music of its own. When the tea was half finished and the room felt calm again, Amma opened the notebook and wrote a short line with a steady hand. 2 assisted micro steps from frame with full support, safe and calm. Word used, door. She closed the book and placed it where Daniel liked to find it. Daniel returned from checking the generator once more. He saw the faces in the room first. Calm, bright, quiet. Then he saw the notebook and read the line. He read it again. His eyes filled and then cleared, like the window had done when the rain began and then slowed. He looked at his mother. Vitation she. The morning after the storm was clear and soft like a clean page. Sunlight came through the window and made a bright square on the carpet. The house felt calm again, but not the same as before. Something gentle had shifted. It was not loud or dramatic. It was a new kind of quiet, one that held promise instead of fear. They kept the plan simple. No one chased big numbers. No one said, let's do more today because yesterday was good. Every day began with the same words Amma liked to say. We measure in seconds, not in steps. We stop if you are tired. The nurse nodded each time, as if those words were a seatbelt they all clicked into place together. In the first week, Mrs. Whitfield tried the frame 3 times. One day she stood for 8 seconds, another day for 12 again. On a third day she felt sleepy and chose not to stand at all. Instead, she did the gentle routine with music and feet on the floor and then rested in the warm sun. Amma wrote each detail with care. Chose rest. Good choice. The notebook never sounded disappointed. It sounded like a friend telling the truth. The staff kept helping in small, kind ways. The senior housekeeper checked the carpet by the window, every morning with her palm, smoothing it with a patient hand. The driver placed the non-slip mat just so and made sure no packages arrived during the quiet hour. The cook learned which teas felt best after standing: mild mint in the morning, gentle chamomile in the afternoon. They did not announce these changes. They just did them, like good neighbors. Ms. Patel came twice a week at first, then once a week, depending on Mrs. Whitfield's energy. She was never in a hurry. She always asked, "How does your body feel today?" and waited for an honest answer. If the answer was tired, she smiled and said, "Then we will be kind." If the answer was steady, she said, "Then we will try a little with care." She made tiny adjustments to comfort. A towel fold here, a rail height there. Each small change made standing feel a little more like the body's own idea, not a strange task. Daniel changed, too. He no longer stood in the doorway like a guard. He came in and sat by the window, close enough to listen and far enough to let the team work. He learned to watch his mother's face instead of the clock. He could tell when she reached the edge of her energy and when she felt brave enough to go one breath more. He stopped bringing his worry into the room. He brought his attention instead. It fit better. One afternoon, a staff member who had once doubted Amma asked to speak with her. They stood in the hallway near the quiet coat closet, where all sounds seemed softer. "I was wrong," the person said. "I did not want any change and spoke too sharply. I see now you are careful and kind. I am sorry." Amma did not make a speech. She placed a hand over her heart for a moment and said, "Thank you for helping keep her safe." The apology settled into the house like a warm light. It did not erase the past. It made the present easier. Around the same time, Daniel met with the Family Foundation's small team at the office in town. He spoke about the new focus he wanted to add: funding for in-home safety equipment and caregiver training for people who could not afford it. He told them about non-slip mats, transfer boards, standing frames, and the simple power of notes and music and kind routines. He did not use his mother's name. He spoke in general terms, with respect for privacy. But everyone in the room understood that this idea came from a place of love. "We can help people feel safe at home," he said. "We can train aides and family members to work in teams with nurses and therapists. We can focus on careful, human details, not just big machines and big goals. We can measure in seconds, not in steps." The team agreed. They drafted a pilot program. They asked Ms. Patel to consult on training. They invited the nurse to advise on home safety checklists. They asked Amma, formally now, to share the simple daily systems that had worked so well. Amma wrote a one-page guide in clear words. It used short lines, not fancy terms. It said things like, "Ask how the person feels, mean it, and stop early rather than late, and music helps comfort and timing." Back at the house, the days found a good rhythm. Some mornings included a frame session with 2 or 3 assisted micro steps. Other mornings included only breathing, a short sit with feet on the floor, and a song that made the room brighter. There were still small scares, like a towel slipping at the wrong time or a phone ringing during a quiet moment, but the team handled them without panic. They paused, fixed the small thing, and returned to calm. Mrs. Whitfield changed in ways that were not about numbers. She spoke more. She asked the staff about their families. She learned the driver's daughter loved to paint birds and asked to see a photo. She learned the cook's mother liked roses and suggested a spot in the garden where the soil stayed just damp enough. She looked at the piano more often, not with sadness, but with interest, as if the keys were patient friends waiting for a visit. On the morning of her birthday, the house felt like it was holding a soft secret. The cook had baked a light cake and placed it on a low cart with a candle. Daniel had invited only a few people: the nurse, Amma, Ms. Patel, and his daughter, Mrs. Whitfield's granddaughter, who had been practicing a simple song on the piano for days. No one planned a big surprise. They planned a gentle moment. They began with the familiar routine: 3 breaths, a favorite song, feet on the floor. No frame that day. The focus was on joy, not on effort. After the tea, the granddaughter, shy but bright, sat at the piano. "I will play it slow," she said, looking at her grandmother, "the way you like it." The first notes were soft and true. Mrs. Whitfield asked, "Could I stand by the piano for just a moment? Not long, with the chair behind me. I would like to feel the music close." Ms. Patel and Amma shared a quick look with the nurse and Daniel. It was safe if they did it with care. They moved the chair near the piano and checked the brakes. They used the belt and stood her in the gentlest way, not in the frame now, but with trained hands, and the chair as a steady support just behind. She stood for the length of a verse, her hands resting on the piano edge, her breath even. She listened, as if the sound were a warm scarf over her shoulders. When she sat again, her eyes were wet. "That was enough," she said. "That was perfect." They sang a quiet birthday line. The candle was lit and blown out without fuss. The cake was small, the slices thin, the smiles wide. No one made a speech. The moment spoke for itself. The weeks that followed, the notebook grew thicker. It held numbers like 8, 12, and sometimes 14. It also held words: calm, brave, rest, enough, joy, stop, tomorrow, and many times, safe. The pages were not a record of winning. They were a record of living with attention. Amma updated the staff, bored quietly. Next to her name, she wrote, "Housekeeper and Care Aide." The title was already true in how she worked. Now it was true in writing. No one questioned it. Daniel thanked her in front of the team and asked if she would help train new hires. She said yes in her simple way. "I will show what I know. We will keep learning together." One afternoon, the senior housekeeper asked if she could add something to the routine. "Only if it fits," she said. "I noticed she likes the window open for 2 minutes after standing. I can set a small timer so we remember to close it before the air feels too cool." Amma smiled. "That would be lovely," she said. "Thank, you." The small timer joined the quiet play of the room. It ticked softly and then rang with a polite sound like a spoon against a cup. The window closed at the right time. No one rushed. No one forgot. It was another simple stitch in a warm blanket of care. Not every day was easy. There were mornings when Mrs. Whitfield felt heavy-hearted for no clear reason. There were afternoons when the music she usually loved felt too bright, and they chose silence instead. There were times when the left foot felt more awake than the right, or the right responded and the left felt stubborn. On those days, Amma wrote "slow day" in the notebook and drew a tiny square next to the words to show the light on the carpet, as if to say, "Even a slow day can hold light." The most important change was inside Mrs. Whitfield. She no longer judged herself by what she could not do. She measured her day by honest effort and kind rest. She learned to listen to her body as if it were a softly spoken friend. When people visited, she told them about the 3 breaths, the careful belt, the safe frame, the sweet tea, and the joy of a good song at just the right time. She did not call anything a miracle. She called it work. She called it love. On a bright morning near the end of spring, the room looked the way it had on the first day Amma arrived: piano, chair, window, carpet. But the feeling was new. The house carried a different heartbeat now, one that everyone could sense. Ms. Patel could not come that day, so they did the simple routine without the frame: breath, music, feet on the floor, and then a small assisted stand with the chair close behind for safety. The nurse stood on one side. Amma stood on the other. Daniel sat by the window, quiet and awake. They rose together for a short moment, only a few seconds, enough to feel tall. Mrs. Whitfield looked at the square of sunlight and smiled. Amma counted the seconds softly, then said, "And rest." They lowered with care. The nurse checked pulse. It was steady. Amma did not reach for the notebook right away. She waited, as she always did, for the room to breathe. The clock ticked. A bird called outside. The day felt simple and good. "Thank you," Mrs. Whitfield said, looking at each of them in turn. "TD,